This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
Welcome, Alphas. Thanks for joining us. You're going to need to buckle up for today's guest. First Lieutenant Austin von Leckerman is a U.S. Army platoon leader currently stationed at Fort Cavazos, but he's better known by his social media handle, MandatoryFunDay. Known for his uplifting and humorous content, Austin reaches 20 million viewers monthly across various platforms. And he somehow does it without getting in big trouble, as far as I know, but we'll find out. His work centers on leadership, military life, and being a dad. More recently, Austin has started working with the American Legion on a few projects, and we are super excited to chat with him and talk more about all this. But first, Adam's got something.
Well, I think in honor of Austin's social media handle, MandatoryFunDay, I think we should share our best MandatoryFunDay memories. I will actually go first. I don't have any. I did not know. I did not know who he was.
Let's got Adam out of the way here.
Until we said we were going to have him on the show.
Well, the fact that you never have fun really eliminates any sort of mandatory fun day.
Well, I just looked at his social media. I saw he has like 1.1 million followers, and I scrolled down and saw the few of the videos. So, I'm excited to meet him and learn more about his craft, because
this might be your first mandatory fun day.
Yeah, that's right. 20 million monthly viewers across platforms is pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up having to mop the entire bay in basic with our own jackets after working out for about 2 hours and covering it with sweat, and then we got in trouble for having dirty uniforms.
Nice.
That was
fun. That sounds like a lot of fun.
And we knew how the whole thing was gonna go. I mean, it was just one of those things to wear.
Well, I always thought, obviously those are, I thought those were more like forced work parties. Mandatory fun to me was when you had no other options. You could either be working or you could go to this picnic with a bunch of like families, with screaming kids. And, that to me was mandatory fun. And I remember I had just gotten to one of my units and they said you could go to this mandatory fun picnic. And I was not really familiar with the unit. I had just gone TDY. And, being one of the only females in the unit, you get a lot of eyes on with the wives. And they're really curious about who you are. And there's a lot of speculation, a lot of wagging tongues. So I'm just having a good time, completely oblivious. And they're like, yeah, we're going to go out to this lake and the families are invited and we're going to go swimming. And I'm just hanging out, totally not knowing what the hell's going on. And suddenly one of the wives comes wading out and she's like, you were TDY with my husband? And I was like, yeah. And suddenly she's like, so how did things go? Was he into anything I should know about? And I'm like, whoa, this took a turn. And I was like, I feel suddenly like I'm in interrogation. And like every turn I was in the burger line and here was an interrogation. I was like, you know what? I've had enough fun. This doesn't feel like fun anymore.
You should have been like, they were tasteful nudes. It meant nothing, I swear.
Hey, it had nothing to do with me. There was never a question about my involvement in anything.
You took pictures of them though, tasteful nudes, right?
They were like, here's an in. She's one of ours. She'll tell us exactly what our husbands were up to while they were gone. Anyway, not fun, totally not great at all. Anyway, those were my mandatory fun stories.
Here's my quick problem with mandatory fun day is I was normally the one that was having to either plan, announce, or coordinate. So like, I'm the guilty party. I was like, what do you mean you don't want to come? We're all going to be together. It's going to be great.
Nobody wants to be with you.
They all showed up, not because it was mandatory, but also because it was mandatory.
I want to give a shout out to Chief Bruce Ross going through basic, because he told us very clearly that our Monday depends on his Sunday, and he said if everybody's religious on Sunday, I don't have to be here. But if I see any atheists or agnostics in my bay tomorrow, our Monday is going to be a lot different. So everybody in my entire unit was religious on Sunday.
I think I remember a similar speech, similar to that in basic training as well. Like our drill instructor gave us a not so subtle hint that everybody should be finding some sort of religious institution to go to on a Sunday. There should be no reason why the bay should have any occupant left behind. Yeah,
those people will be very busy and Monday. But that's I'm 100% in agreement. Mandatory fun days, you end up making friends that you don't want to make, or talking to wives that you don't want to be talking to.
For all those mandatory dependent interrogations. All right, Alpha, stick around, or don't, for those mandatory fun days. We'll be back with Austin right after the break.
The American Legion is raising awareness about PTSD and veteran suicide by offering hope, camaraderie, and support.
Be the one to help end veteran suicide.
Be the one to save one veteran.
Be the one to ask a veteran in your life how they're doing.
Be the one to reach out when a veteran is struggling.
Go to betheone.org and help the American Legion end veteran suicide.
Will you be the one?
All right, Alphas. Today, we are joined by Austin von Letkerman, better known across social media as Mandatory Fun Day. Austin, thank you so much, and welcome to Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
Hey guys, how's it going? I really, really appreciate you having me on.
Hello, Austin. Welcome to the show, and most importantly, thanks for your service.
Oh, thank you.
That's never awkward.
It's never. No, you know what? I don't thank you for your service.
Whoa!
I'm just kidding. I always like to start off with our guests. If I'm in the first up seat, I like to get the origin story of the guest. I like to know what your backstory is. Where are you from? Why'd you join the service? Why the particular branch of choice? You were Army, correct?
Sure, yeah.
Your villain arc.
Yeah, like not villain. He's a superhero. Okay, so tell us all about yourself.
Sure. I think that was only 3 questions, but I did join the Army, so I'll try and remember all 3 of them. But yeah, so I'm from Portland, Oregon originally, and it's funny. There's just not a significant presence of military or veterans really out in that area. The Pacific Northwest is not military heavy, but I wanted to. I joined the Army really because the things that I was trying to do at the time had kind of fallen apart, and I had always been curious about the military, and I kind of anticipated just getting in, doing some time, and getting out, and now here we are 13 years later. Every single time my re-enlistment window came up, I was getting out, and then somehow I stayed in.
You're like, hey, yeah, we got this paperwork and a good deal for you, my man.
Yeah, I just didn't want to deal with CIF, to be honest with you.
Fair enough.
Fantastic.
So what's your job in the Army? What's your MO?
I'm currently a military intelligence officer, but I will probably be transitioning to public affairs fairly soon.
Wow, intelligence, that's an oxymoron. So public affairs, you're going to go to Defense Information School. That's
Well, it's kind of up in the air. I'm kind of in a unique program. The organization that I'm working for, they have some satellite options or some hybrid satellite in-person options for things that I can do to meet the Army's requirements for public affairs. But they want me to kind of, in a way, informally make content for the Army. And so we're trying to figure it out. We're kind of flying the plane as we build it.
Well, since the Army doesn't fly planes, you're going to phone it in, basically, is what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
No, we got the Sherpas. There's a few Army planes. There's a C-12.
Yeah.
We don't have the sexy aircraft for certain.
We got no sexy planes. We got the Apache.
Don't
great
build a
personalities,
helicopter while
though.
you're in
Wow.
flight. I
Hey,
would
did
not
you hear
advise
that,
that.
Adam? He kind of snuck it in there. He said, "We don't have sexy planes. We've got the Apache."
Thank you. Thank you.
Dot
Austin.
dot
Oh
dot.
my God, you've won him over. He's never going to stop now. Here we go.
So did all this come about from Mandatory Funday and from obviously the 20 million in viewers across, platforms that you're able to generate? And so did the Army come and reach out to you, or like how did that happen?
Well, actually, I was planning my transition out.
Which time?
Yeah. Well, this one was legitimate. I started doing paperwork. I started lining up jobs and stuff like that. And then I talked to an 06, a full bird colonel, and she was different than any other officer I'd spoken to. She is not rigid in her thinking. She enjoys ambiguity, and that's where I thrive. I want to be in a place that nobody else has been, and I feel like I do pretty well in that spot. But she, I was talking to her, and I was like, hey, she was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I want to do content, and like, I'm good at it. And she was like, okay, well, let's figure out how to get you to do that in the Army. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, this isn't possible. And a couple months later, she called me and she said, hey, I built a position for you. Like, it's ready. Like, let's do this. And I was like, okay, ma'am, like, what are my deliverables? What do you want me to do? And she literally, I'll never forget this moment on the phone. She said, you're the expert. You tell me what we should do. I had this full bird colonel telling me like, hey, I don't know this realm, but you do. I just want to resource you and let you run. And so at that point, she had won my full loyalty at that point.
Yes.
You know what
You're
I mean?
like, finally, somebody who
And
gets
so
it.
she very much, and we were just recently on a phone call. We are talking to an aviation unit currently that we're going to do content with. And the aviation unit said, hey, we've got some forms you guys got to fill out, yada, yada. And Colonel Saling was like, hold on. Because there were 4 content creators on the call, including myself. And she said, hey, we are going to deal with the administrative stuff. We want the creators dealing with creative stuff. And so
nice.
I was just shocked. You know what I mean? This person is... Because, a lot of times in the military, it's a very one-sided relationship. One person's pulling and the other person is being drugged, you know what I mean? But they really want to work to make this work for everybody. And at the end of the day, the Army's biggest issue right now is recruiting, right? It's manpower. And I've seen that because I've been in, at the battalion level for the vast majority of my career. And so they want to facilitate this. And it's nice being part of a team where everybody's giving 100% effort and where nobody's trying to self-preserve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think it's a great example about how like the right leader thinking the right way can recognize talent and opportunity.
Right.
And then, it's got to transcend beyond that. It can't just be you have to take it to the next step to be able to provide, right, like the top cover, like you were saying, to say,
Yeah.
no, we're not going to get bogged down in this. Like this person is here for a very specific thing, and that's to do something that, nobody else can do in the way that you can. So can you talk a little bit about how your passion for content development has kind of grown into like where you are now, and how are you thinking about this opportunity ahead, and how do you bring over, all the things that you've been cultivating and refining, putting out that your audience loves to consume,
Right.
and then moving that over to what's in store for you? What's ahead?
Sure. Well, it's been crazy how it's developed, right? I was in Office Joe, which is a literal TV show on Amazon Prime, which is crazy. I made my acting debut with 0 acting experience. I do a ton of keynote speaking now. Like I yell at my phone and I post it on the internet, so people want me to come speak in front of crowds, which, obviously, right?
There's a transition that makes sense to me.
But yeah, and honestly, the keynote speaking is my favorite thing to do. It is so much fun to do. And
is it very free? Like you can kind of get up there and just do your own thing with it?
Yeah, I'm not good at that many things. Honest to God, I'm not that great at that many things, but I've found that is something that I'm good at, and I love doing it. But when I started doing this, I had no idea it was going to blow up like this. Because even as far as content creators go, I'm fairly large. I've made it farther than most content creators do. And I just didn't expect that because I personally don't find myself that interesting. But I made somewhere between 20 and 27 videos on TikTok. And one of those videos in that range did like 60,000 views. And it was super easy to do. It took me like 10 minutes to make. And I was like, I can do this every single day. And that's what I did. And people will ask me, like, what is your biggest tip? And it's literally that I've made 6,000 videos in 3 years. Like, that's it.
Wow.
Like, just keep making content. Like, just because if you have that kind of volume, you're going to figure out what works. I figured out what works for my audience. And then when I found what worked, I did it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And that's been, and anytime I take a dip, I just make a video about DTS, which all service members universally hate. Yeah.
All right, let's bring it back to the baseline. We all know that we can hate on this. That's great.
I unite us all over our hatred of Army systems, or military systems, rather.
There's such great advice that you have in there, which is right. Like, just get out there and do it. Like, don't stop, and then refine your craft over time. And then once you start to get confidence in what's working, really scale that and accelerate that.
Yeah.
And then once it kind of doesn't work, and then come back to what you know does.
I always tell people too, like, a lot of people tell me, I want to make content, but I'm nervous that people will notice my freaking weird nose or something. Like, they have these weird insecurities. And I had the same thing. I actually didn't make content for about 2 years. Like, I put off starting because I was like, I am not deployed. I don't have any cool badges. My career in the Army has been kind of unremarkable. Why would anybody care about what I have to say? Nobody has cared about that at all. Like, I've never even seen a comment of anybody saying, like, this guy hasn't deployed. He's not actually funny. Like, you know what I mean? But that's the thing in my mind that I had an insecurity about. Now, people do comment about other things. Like, I saw a comment the other day and it said, your lips move weird when you talk. And I was like, I could have gone my whole life without hearing that. Like, why would you say that? Because now I go back and I watch my videos. And I'm like, do my lips move weird? Like, so I guess what I'm saying is, don't worry about the things you think you're insecure about, because your audience will give you new ones, and just go to counseling.
Oh my gosh. So now you're like looking in the mirror, talking, and you're doing it weird because you're trying not to do it weird.
I know. People are always like, you sound like Morty from Rick and Morty. And I'm like, stop commenting this. Like, stop.
Oh man. So first of all, it was fantastic meeting you at the Army Navy game.
Yeah.
That was cool. And I've been following your workout plan actually for about the past 4 weeks, and my results have been incredible. I showed a parent at a soccer game last Saturday. She didn't get up. I yeeted a kid almost 12 foot, and that's 3 foot more than what I'm used to. And so
I love it.
I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
And my real question is, have you made so many videos at this point that you don't even catch your own references? Like, people make jokes at you and you're like,
that? It's funny that you say that, because not a single time has anyone ever referenced a video and I didn't remember. Like, it's like I can go back and remember almost the exact video word for word. It's weird. I have this, and it's funny because I have the worst memory. I have the memory of a goldfish. And but I have this incredible recall for my own content, which I don't know if I'm a narcissist or whatever, but I definitely have solid recall for my own videos. So yeah, that hasn't really been a problem. And I'm fairly strategic with the phrases that I use and stuff now. Like, I know what people are going to think is funny. Like, I exist out of spite is the one that's popping off right now. People love that. And then I have a hat that just says I exist out of spite in big letters on it, and people love that stuff. But yeah, no, I don't know. I've got pretty good. I've never missed one of my own references, and people often yell them at me in public.
So that's good to know, because I'm going to actually list off all your videos, and I want you to reenact scenes from each one. So I actually, my real question was, can you tell me about your role in Office Joe? Because like you said, you go into just, you don't take yourself seriously, which is what makes you kind of like great. You don't laugh at your own jokes. It's kind of like a dry humor. I think that it resonates with people that are in office spaces that have to deal with just in general. And I think that's one reason why you've branched out even from people watch you and know of you who aren't even military. So, what inspired you to take part in a comedy series about transitioning to civilian life, which is obviously something you never intend on doing? And how did that sort of happen?
Yeah, so Nick Palmisano, who is my best friend. Well, first off, if he asks me to do something, I don't even question it. I just go do it. That's one of the best people I've ever met in my life. But he asked me to do this, and Nick does not ask you to do something that he doesn't think you're going to murder. You know what I mean? And so I knew going into it, like, if Nick thinks I can do this, I can definitely do it. And I showed up, and I was still rehearsing my lines on the freaking flight to North Carolina. I was so nervous because I really do have a bad memory. But then I got there, my co-actor was Jared Taylor, and we had really good chemistry, and it just flowed. It's like we started, I remembered all my lines. We were able to do, there were some scenes we were able to do 8 or 9 takes. And so it was really good. And I was honored that Nick asked me to be part of that project, because that was a huge undertaking for him.
Yeah.
That was massive. You know what I mean? And to have him basically say, hey, I think you're going to be a good steward of this thing that I'm going to put so much effort into was very flattering. You know what I mean? And that he thought I had the chops for it, despite the fact that I have 0 acting experience.
Well, you do now. You've got some experience.
Now I'm on Prime. You know what I mean?
They call it prime time.
Where I have random people
IMDb
come over and be like, hey, let's watch this show. Is that me in there? Oh, my God.
When did I do that?
Yes. But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. That's one of the highlights of my life for sure.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's pretty cool. You have like a brand and merchandise line. You actually mentioned it, Exit Out of Spite, and you've got that's kind of on some brand and merch. Talk to me a little bit about what was the brainchild behind that? What made you want to stick that on a bunch of shirts and stuff?
Oh, yeah. So it started with my geopolitics content, and when I would say don't touch my boats, because America in general, culturally, and since the inception of our country, has had almost a religious fervor surrounding our maritime vessels. And it's, a sailor could tell you better than I could, but I believe that it is because of the time and resources that it takes to build a ship, right? It's a massive undertaking. And so
homes.
Right. Yeah. They're they really do have a cult behind them. The Navy is effectively a cult. And anybody in the Navy that's offended by that, you can't tell me I'm wrong. So it is what it is.
You're right.
But yeah, and so I started saying "Don't touch my boats" in certain videos, and people really latched onto it. And so somebody told me you need to put this on a shirt, and I hadn't done merch at that point, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. And so I teamed up with a company, slapped it on some T-shirts, and I think I sold 10,000 of those T-shirts in 2 weeks. And so it was just it was so mind-boggling how responsive people were to it. And so now it's really cool because I have a source of income that's separate from the platforms. And because the platforms are very finicky, they go up and down. You can't really count on that money. And then half the time they're trying to demonetize you or something. So
that's pretty cool. You also have obviously a presence on YouTube and stuff like that. And I was cracking up. What was I seeing the other day? You have hey, you were saying something about High Speed and Warrior Companion and Shipmate and Battle Buddy. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about where do these spur out of do these stem from spur of the moment, or are these well thought out, well planned things?
Yeah, there's no planning behind them. So it's funny, my friends make fun of me because sometimes I'll go silent on the phone mid-sentence, and now they know I just had an idea and I'm writing it down. There have been times when I've literally stopped walking, and I'll just stare off at Mars or the ether, whatever I'm looking at, because I'm having an idea. It almost feels like a curse at times at this point because it just happens. I thought that my ability to generate ideas was going to be the biggest thing that held me back as a creator. but I have a list of ideas in the notes on my phone, and I've probably got a couple hundred in there. Like, I have more ideas than I'm ever going to have time to even film.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of cool, but the biggest limiting factor on me for sure is time, especially being active duty. And that's part of the reason why I think it's cool that I'm about to start doing this project, because it'll hopefully give me some time back. I won't be, I won't be doing necessarily all the normal military stuff. I'll just be able to focus on content. And obviously during duty hours, it's going to be Army focused, but it always is for the moment. And normally I have a 1 word or 1 sentence prompt, and then I rip it from there. I'm generally not good off of scripts. Like, I emceed an event one time, and I'll never do it again because that was fully scripted, and God, I stunk at that.
You know what to do with your hands.
I know. And then
events?
people were messing things up in the script. It wasn't me, I swear to God. But then they're looking up at me, and I'm just the dumbass. I probably can't cuss on this one. Sorry,
You're
guys.
fine.
I'm
We're
just the
dumbasses,
lieutenant
too.
that everybody's staring at. They're like, "Did you mess this up?" And I'm like, "I didn't. They are out of order. It wasn't me." But I can't say that at the event. You know what I mean?
It wasn't the lieutenant.
All my talking is off the cuff as well, and which means sometimes you forget things. But it when it goes well, it goes really well.
Right.
But I hate when I go somewhere and they want me to run through things like 3 times. I'm like, you guys are destroying my
I
ability to do
know.
this.
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
really hard on your creativity.
Yeah, I think having a general idea or an outline of where you're going is fine, but when you regurgitate it over and over, it's just it's so disingenuous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually I very rarely have to do second takes in my own content. And it's not because I'm doing everything flawlessly, it's because I just don't care if I mess up a word or whatever.
Yeah.
But if I have to do more than a third take, I just can the idea for that day. I write it down and I do it the next day or whatever, because it's just, at that point I'm so angry. I'm like, why can't I get this? And so I just gotta to move on.
Well, I think it's really cool because you've established that authentic delivery without having to put a filter or a barrier or rehearsing. And yeah, I mean, I speak a lot as well, Joe and Stacy. And if I have to go from a script, I mean, I can read the words on the page, but if you want the passion coming through and if you want the inspiration, then I need the couple word prompts. I need the loose outline, and I need to be able to know what am I trying to communicate here, to my audience. And
You see me cry, you got to let me.
you
let me
want to
talk.
see Joe cry? Just wait 5 seconds. No.
I'm the cry.
So I wasn't that familiar with your content beforehand, but I got on and I was consuming some of it and laughing at the things we're talking about. But there was also one that really stuck out to me, and it was just you kind of addressing the audience, I think, in between sets, in the gym, and it seemed like you were really kind of talking from the heart. And so, talk a little bit about that content that you produce as well, because it seems like maybe going back to your ability to just be authentic, that you can show up and not necessarily have to provide the sarcastic humor, but be able to comment about real things, through the audience that you've curated. And I saw that maybe that one, just from a comments and engagement, generated more traffic. Maybe it was the topic that you were talking about, but there was something about, not even the humor side of things, but just the deeper meaning behind you as the person having thoughts in the world and sharing that with your audience.
Yeah. That specific video, I know which one you're talking about. It always generates a lot. So in the video, basically the premise behind it is, even though we disagree on certain things, we don't have to hate each other. And I feel like as a country, we are very divided, and everything is so divisive. And I know people that are like, hey, if somebody's a Democrat or somebody's a Republican, I'm not going to associate with them. And that's just insane to me. That's crazy. I'm fairly apolitical, and I mean, I use the excuse that I'm active duty to stay out of politics online, but truth be told, I'm never going to get into politics because it's just not my bag. And quite frankly, I believe that unsolicited advice 99% of the time is worth exactly what you paid for it. I don't generally try and give advice, because I hate it when people just give me unsolicited advice that I didn't ask for, because I'm just like, what do we got going on here? But yeah, that one specifically, I had just seen in the last couple days leading up to it, just so much back and forth on the internet. And so I used my father, who was a business owner for effectively my entire childhood, as an example. And there were policies put in place. My dad sold used cars. And, you know, there were policies put in place while he was a business owner, such as cash for clunkers. I don't know if you guys remember that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so cash for clunkers benefited the big dealerships, and it totally screwed my dad, who was a small used car guy, you know? And so, but a lot of people agreed with the cash for clunkers program. And so what I said was, just because somebody agrees with that doesn't mean they hate my dad, you know, even though it's financially affecting him and it's negatively affecting him. I don't think those people hate my dad. I don't think those people are dumb. They just don't have perspective, you know? And somebody like talking about even the more divisive topics, like, I don't know, border security, right? That is a fairly contested topic. Somebody in Arizona who might be dealing with that in a real way, whose neighborhood has been like flooded with fentanyl, is going to feel different than somebody in freaking, you know, Washington, for example. It just, different people have different perspective, and just because they disagree, it doesn't make them dumb, doesn't make them unintelligent, and it doesn't mean they hate each other. They don't have to hate each other. But people just draw down party lines, and it's really hard to watch sometimes, because both sides generally have a good perspective on something. And I mean, God, we'd get a lot more done if we could all just kind of get along. I just wish I could put everybody in a big get along shirt. You know what I mean? Big 4XL
Everybody
shirt, put everybody in there.
Everybody, it's on the wall.
Yeah,
Yelling.
everybody start doing cherry pickers, and we'll all suffer together. But yeah, and so now I'm rambling at this point, but I think you guys get the point. Like, I just wish everybody could take a chill pill and we could figure something out together.
It reminds me of that old, I don't know if you remember, there was an old commercial that had like a prominent Republican and a prominent Democrat, and they were sitting there eating or drinking Pepsi and a Coke. And it was like a collab, and they sort of like tapped their drinks, and it was just sort of, I remember that. And then, you know, as I got older, I thought that you know, that kind of thing was impossible. And then I spent time in DC, and I realized that a lot of the anger that you're seeing is not in DC. Like, weirdly, a lot of those people are friends. Yeah. A lot of those people are friends. They're good friends. They eat lunch together. And I don't mean that to say anything other than the fact that be careful where you're getting all this anger from, because it may be for the purpose of making someone money or clicks, and not because there's really that much divisiveness.
Meanwhile, there's an independent over in the corner drinking an Orange Crush.
Yeah, and it's so funny, like, one of the number one comments in that video was, yeah, but if we're talking about human rights, there's no, like, I can't, like, whatever. And it's like, yeah, well, that's why I used my father, who's a business owner, like, as the example. The veteran community is very opinionated. And unfortunately, the loudest ones are also generally the least likely to be open to the idea that maybe they don't have the perspective that they think they do, or that they might be wrong. I am wrong all the time, and my bosses and coworkers tell me quite frequently. My
wife tells me.
It's this interesting thing of like the jester being able to speak the most truth, and that's
that's interesting. Yeah,
that goes back for, you know, the archetypes as long as they've been around, and so it's something about being able to cut and look at, you know, the comedians, you know, of today being able to go and talk about things that nobody else can talk about. Because, you know, comedy is the vehicle that cuts through everything. So I would just say
comedy is disarming. It's disarming. If you can make somebody laugh, you've made an ally.
And I think we're at a point now where, you know, we're on the backside of this really harsh, hopefully on the backside of this really harsh cancel culture, and comedians are able to do the thing, which is make a caricature of society. Not everything they say is an actual opinion and stuff. And I say all that, but, you know, I do kind of want to circle back around with something. You know, your video about your daughters, it went viral, landed you on the Today Show, which is crazy that you got to go do that. I've got 4 kids, but after 2 daughters, I stopped letting God decide and adopted. two boys. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. I've never understood the better clean your shotgun comments. I mean,
That's weird.
It's
It's
a
odd.
weird energy.
The idea that somebody would suggest that I should even threaten somebody's child with physical violence is like, even as a kid, I was like, what are you talking about? And now there's two sides to that. Now you're getting me on my soapbox, all right? I'm all fired up now. But like, there is two sides to that, right? Because we have to, like, our culture of masculinity in the United States of America is like, I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that are just trying to sleep with as many women as possible. And that is a fact. And so we need to, we shouldn't be threatening children by cleaning weapons in front of them. But also we need to like teach kids like, hey, you need to be respectful of other people, you know, and that includes in your dating life. Hopefully that's a topic we can broach on here too. Yeah, I don't know what's off limits yet, guys.
No, I mean, honestly, we're pretty open about everything. Like, I think that's one thing that makes us as genuine as well, is that we can speak, you know, we do criticize the VA, but we're always looking for props. We're always looking for ways to say, hey, this was well done. You
Right.
nailed this. So, you know, and I think that from what I gathered of yours, the way my girls are raised, whenever I meet someone interested in them, I pray for them, man. Because I have spoiled my girls. They have high expectations. Good luck. Let me know if you need some help or advice. Like, that's how I handle it. I've never had a guy walk in my house after either one of my daughters and me go to intimidate them. I mean, I'm a one-legged 6'3" guy. So like, I think it automatically kind of happens, but I try to disarm it whenever I can, you know? And that's sort of really my point is like, how is your family like adapted to all this? I mean, you know, and if you don't want to talk about your family, I 100% get that. Because I'm curious, you know, as you stay in, what happens when you pick up general? Like, what happens when you're...
That's not going to happen. No, there's not a person insane enough on earth to make me a general officer.
Of public relations?
With
You're
the
picking
way,
up?
like, with the way that when I commissioned, I was almost at 10 years. I was at like 9.5 years, and I was a staff sergeant. And for those of you that are listening that were not in the Army, that's an E6. But I can retire. I mean, I'll be able to retire as a captain. But honestly, like, the opportunities outside the military are just so good, and I'm passing so many things up. The only reason I'm staying in now is because I have a love for the institution. I believe in what the institution does, and I want to solve this very real problem, which is people. And the only reason we're still having this problem is because we are not effectively utilizing social media. And thank God that's the thing that's like the only thing in the world that I'm good at. You know, the Army recently did like an ad run, and I don't know what all went into it, but they did it with The Rock. And The Rock is a big name, but I don't think he resonates with the 18-year-old crowd, the recruitable population, like he would with our generation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I saw The Rock in an ad when I was 18, like that was like at the height of his acting career, right after WWE. Like that would have been cool. And it's funny, I make jokes like the Army will say, hey, we need a celebrity to attract the kids. Who should we get? And then somebody will be like, let's get Shaggy. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, Shaggy's awesome if you're 35
Dolly Parton,
plus.
maybe.
Like if you have knee pain, Shaggy is sick. You know what I mean? Like I'll come out to see Shaggy, but I'm going home.
Hogan, maybe.
But like the Army does a lot of things really amazing, but sometimes, you know, sometimes something doesn't go exactly as planned, and the ad run with The Rock didn't go quite as they had planned. I am really excited for this, though, because what I would like to do with this program is start something that is equivalent to the world-class athlete program, where people in the uniform can kind of step out of their normal role, and they can just do content for the Army. And they can do it in I mean, there's going to be left and right limits. It will be professional. It will not besmirch or disparage the image of the United States Army. But it'll be done in a way that gives them some creative liberty and allows them to stay authentic to themselves, because that's what works. And oh, by the way, the Army's not spending any marketing dollars on it because they're just paying the salary of the green suitor. So it's like super cost effective. Like worst case scenario is it doesn't exactly work and you just took this person out of a duty position for a year. Best case scenario is we have a ton of content go super viral, and the Army basically just got a bunch of free advertising. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
Love it.
Well, oh, sorry, Joe. Did I just cut
No,
you off?
I had one more thing that I wanted to ask, and I feel like you being on here, I love the American Legion get up. I did want to ask one last question on my end before I pass it on. What got you involved with the American Legion? Because a lot of times people don't get involved until prior service, and they have that aching hole inside of their heart that says, okay, I wish I had stayed in, or I want to go back in. And then they find the American Legion. So I'd love to know, a little bit about that journey.
Well, the American Legion, it just isn't as big for my generation, or it wasn't pushed as hard for my generation when I joined. I only learned about the American Legion a couple years ago, and I immediately fell in love with the mission, what the American Legion does. And when I was given the opportunity, and Nick is the one that kind of made the connection, when I was given the opportunity to work with y'all, I was like, I didn't have to think about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's an incredible organization. It's massive. It's got a lot of history, and the mission is the best. And then I started interacting with the people that work for the American Legion, and every single one is incredible. Every single person believes in the mission. Every single person is dedicated to veterans, their families, and service members. And it was just, I wanted to be a person that helps steward the next generation of young veterans into an amazing organization to keep that organization going. But also, I want to help link them up with the resources that the American Legion has. Like, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. And so that's how I got, that's how I got involved in the American Legion. But it was Nick, again, that made the connection. And it's my favorite professional relationship that I have is with the American Legion. And every single time, like a lot of companies, and I keep having to adjust this because my tripod's really cheap, because I'm really cheap, and it keeps falling. But I don't know. I really wanted to help be a voice, because I have a really good finger on the pulse of the 18 to 25-year-old military and veteran community. And I wanted to be able to communicate to them with my own style of humor and comedy, and with my platforms like, hey, this organization's amazing. Give it a shot. And really, the American Legion is largely a community-driven organization. It's us. Everyone is the American Legion. And so we need that next generation to come in and kind of carry the torch, And so that's kind of what I wanted to help facilitate.
Dude, you're a rock star, man. Honestly, I appreciate it. You keep saying you're not good at stuff, but you're having a huge impact.
I appreciate it.
And it means a lot. I love to see people who find ways to serve when they get out, and you're finding ways to serve veterans while you're still active duty. And I'm not going to cry, so don't look at me like that.
He is. He's
But
gonna
it doesn't
cry.
mean I'm far away from it. For me, consideration and love, that stuff is like my heart kink, as it is,
Right.
for the weirdest way I could possibly put that. But honestly, man, I love what you're doing, and it means the world that you're here and hanging out with us today. And I do appreciate you.
I appreciate you guys having me on. And it is funny, at the Army-Navy game, somebody introduced, I'm about to sound terrible. I meet so many people I can never remember names anymore, but somebody in the American Legion introduced me to somebody very important in the American Legion. And they introduced me by saying, hey, this is Austin. He's one of our content creators that we work with. And he had, I don't want to get the wording wrong, but she said he had one of the most effective internet ad we've had as far as recruiting, or something to that effect. And it was one of the ads that I did for y'all that I sent over to Nick's guys, and they kind of cut it up and made it look really good. And to hear that I had created such an effective piece of content, I don't often feel proud of myself. And it's something that I'm working on, right? I got my counselor. But in that moment, there's very few things that had made me feel more pride. And not because I did something really well, but because I did something well and it had such an amazing impact on an organization that I love and believe in.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Well, Austin, you're amazingly talented, amazingly funny human being, and we appreciate you. The Alphas do appreciate you too.
My mother tells me that I'm very handsome.
That's because she looks in the mirror and she has to see your face. So it's, Alphas, you can get on YouTube and subscribe to Mandatory Funday. You can do that right now. Actually, go out there and do it right now so you can get some chuckles in.
Whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not, that's got to happen right
mandatory.
now. We're going to have those social media handles in our show notes, as well as Mandatory Funday's everything. So keep in touch. Austin, we love your antics. We're going to see a lot more from you. And before we sign off, is there anything that we may have missed?
I don't think so. My website's themandatoryfunday.com. You can subscribe to my newsletter there, and if you want to pick up some Toaster Bath merch, feel free.
TheMandatoryFunday.com. Austin, thank you so much for visiting us today, for laughing with us, and keep speaking the truth through your comedy. Alpha, stick around for some scuttlebutt.
Oh, also, somebody already has MandatoryFunday.com. That's why I had to do TheMandatoryFunday.com. So if that's one of y'all, hit me up. We can work something out, all right?
Let's make a deal.
Mandatory
Somebody
Funday.
has Mandatory Funday on Twitter, too. Like, give me that. I have to be the monotone Mustang on X or whatever we're calling it now.
Fantastic.
All right. And with that, Alpha, stick around for some scuttlebutt after the break.
American values and patriotism. The American Legion advocates for upholding and defending the United States Constitution, equal justice and opportunity for everyone, and discrimination against no one, youth education, responsible citizenship, and honoring military service by observing and participating in patriotic and memorial events. We are veterans strengthening America. We are the American Legion.
Okay, Alice, we hope you had a great break. Now it's time for some scuttlebutt. Joe, what do you got?
All right, two soldiers, Private William Simon Harris and Private James McIntyre, will posthumously receive Medal of Honors for their combat heroics in the Philippines in 1899 that they never got because of a mix-up with their mailing addresses. I mean, imagine, though, now it's like you get a Medal of Honor, but you don't get it because it went to your spam filter.
That reminds me of like Monopoly. Clerical error in your favor. Receive the Medal of Honor.
Yeah, right. So, I was about to say if they were owed money, they would have found them. Didn't get their Medal of Honors. So the families of the soldiers began requesting the Army release the medals nearly 2 decades after a historian uncovered the circumstances of the medals being approved but never presented. During that time, Army Human Resource Command had to verify the paperwork, and then the Army had to seek authorization from the White House to present the medals. And since neither family wanted a formal ceremony in Washington, Harris and McIntyre were approved for the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military award for combat heroics, in 1906 by President Theodore Roosevelt, along with 21 other members of the Young Scouts, a group that was sent out on dangerous assignments in the Philippines in 1899 during the Philippine insurrection. And Michael Eberhardt, a Medal of Honor researcher and author. The insurrection followed the U.S. taking control of the Philippines from Spain during the Spanish, I remember this, I went in basic right after this, Spanish-American War in 1898. For me, as the researcher who discovered the relevant documents and their significance over 2 years ago, the Medal of Honor awards validate the belief that a persistent use of facts can ultimately persuade the federal government to correct a terrible injustice, no matter how old, Eberhardt said. I love that. A persistent use of facts can ultimately persuade the federal government. That's a beautiful quote. Anything less than a persistent use of facts, maybe not. So the elite group of scouts earned recognition for 2 battles in May of 1899, one in San Miguel and one in San Isidro, according to Eberhardt's book, The Medal of Honor, Its Dark Sides. In each battle, the group of up to 25 scouts was outnumbered by hundreds, but managed to complete their mission successfully. In San Isidro, the men recaptured control of a bridge. 13 of the 21 men who were still alive in 1906 received their medals, Eberhardt said. It was policy at the time for the Army not to issue a Medal of Honor to a deceased soldier, so 6 men did not get the award. However, Harris and McIntyre were still living when Roosevelt approved the awards, but never got the medals, he said. Somehow, the letters mailed to the soldiers informing them of the awards were returned to the Army, and no further effort was made to locate them, despite both receiving a veteran's pension and did short stays in the U.S. soldiers' homes. Eberhart said. After discovering the oversight while researching his book, Eberhart reached out to the Harris and McIntyre families and assisted them in going through the process of claiming the medals from the Army. Wow. That's wild. You get a Medal of Honor and you don't even know. Like, no one ever knows. Your family doesn't know. And somebody got that return mail and was like, not my problem.
Has there ever been so many people that got a Medal of Honor for? That's wild.
Like a blanket mission? I don't believe so.
That's I've never heard of that. 13
So
of the
there's
20
a Medal of Honor.
But qualifications and definitions of medals have changed over time. You know, like the Purple Heart's definition had changed. Had the Medal of Honor definition been different in 1899? Was it different back then than what we define it as now? So I'd be curious to see, was it different then? To blank, obviously it's much more singular now. So somebody in a group of individuals wouldn't necessarily, blanket recognize a group of individuals so much as a singular individual. Maybe that's the difference in terms of why so many people would be awarded the medal.
I mean, I believe you get a pension for being a Medal of Honor recipient, but honestly, I think one of the coolest things about the Medal of Honor recipients is that they are, they join, a lot of them are involved in the Medal of Honor Foundation, and the Medal of Honor Foundation does a lot for veterans. I had the opportunity to go up for a Medal of Honor awards presentation for America's Vet Dogs, a community award that they gave out. And I'm actually invited in early March to go back up for a Circle of Honor dinner. Where they're going to make an announcement of some kind that I know nothing about. I probably maybe could call people and find out. I do know a couple of recipients, but I kind of like surprises, unless it's an explosion. But other surprises I like.
Is that an annual dinner, Joe, or is that something that it just happens when there's a reason for them to come together?
I'm not sure, because this is my first year sort of interacting with them. But in this one, they're doing an award presentation for someone. I'm not sure how secretive. I don't mean like security wise. I mean, I just don't know if the recipient knows, so I don't want to say their name out loud. But they're giving an award presentation for a general right now. So
cool.
That'll be cool.
Well,
I'll keep you guys updated.
Producer Holly reports in that in 1896, the criteria for the Medal of Honor were updated to require gallantry and intrepidity.
Imagine you're in a combat zone and you're like about to do something. You're like, I wonder if I can get a Medal of Honor, and you have to look up the word intrepidity.
Intrepidity.
Yeah,
above and beyond the call of duty.
Intrepidity. That's a mouthful.
Hey,
find a synonym, guys. Let's get a different word.
The new criteria also required that nominations be made by someone other than the recipient. Before 1896, there were a lot of self-nominations coming in.
I'm a baller, guys.
Stuff.
Look what I did.
Now listen, see, I fought with them. I deserve it. That's how we talk back then.
And a witness to provide testimony. Nominations must be made within 1 year of the deed, and a witness must provide testimony.
So that time,
similar to what it is now, right?
That I single-handedly fought off an alien invasion in 1999. I get nothing for that. Just because nobody saw it?
Truth.
Oh, gosh. Will Smith was there.
That's what I was going to say. You and Will Smith? Is that?
Yeah, it was me and old Willie, Slick Willie.
Wait, no, Independence Day? July 4th, 1999?
Yeah, man. It was Independence Day. We had a song and everything.
Well, I think that definitely clears things up a little bit. That the definitions of the medal, criteria of the medal changed it a little bit.
Yeah.
And shout out
I'm
to
glad it's getting
Eberhart writing his book and doing the research and helping those people, the families. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, good on them for doing the research and getting this straightened out, even if it was, 126 years late.
All right. Well, we'll be looking to hearing about the circle dinner and what happens there, Joe. But I got a story for you.
Let's hear it.
Every February, the VA throws a party, not that kind of party, Joe, for thousands of veterans who receive care every day in the VA medical centers. outpatient clinics, domiciliaries, and nursing homes. It's National Salute to Veteran Patients Week. This is your opportunity to say thank you to this special group of men and women. Among the many activities at VA medical centers across America, the Oklahoma City VA will be distributing thank you bags to veterans. They will be visiting inpatient as well as outpatient veterans, and will also be visiting the CBOCs as well. Joe, you're inpatient in Oklahoma City. What do you want in that goodie bag?
You're muted, Joe.
That might be my first
Sounds so much
muted
better when you're
Uh-huh.
muted.
on camera.
Hey, by the way, a little insider baseball here, Adam. My sister is a nurse with the VA, and that the CBOC they actually call a CBOC.
Which stands for?
Who knows?
The acronym, the fact that it's important enough to have an acronym is all that matters.
That's
But they
right.
call it-
I know
they
standard
call it a
procedure
CBOC.
for making acronyms into their words. Yes, C-Box as well. Okay, the Martinsburg VA Medical Center will be airing a magic show. They're illusions, Michael, by the Washington.
Oh, you love that television series. Tell me that's great. Jason Bateman is a genius.
I don't just
I
love
was
it.
gonna-
It basically pioneered comedy for a whole generation.
He's amazing.
I was going to
Very
reference
incredible.
the old
There's
YouTube
money in that
video.
banana
What the
stand.
F, David Blaine? What the F, David Blaine?
It's the
If you haven't seen
final
that, it's fantastic.
countdown. All right, we're talking about none other than Arrested Development in the first 3 seasons in the early aughts.
Miles and maybe.
Most underrated show of all time. Okay, in the Martinsburg VA Medical Center, they will be airing a magic show by the Washington, D.C. Magic Club on their internal channel. The channel airs at veterans' bedsides. That will be a sight to see.
And
Do you
to
think
answer
there'll-
your
do you think
question,
there'll be
food.
Aztec tombs.
I would want food in my goodie, like gummy bears.
So we have moved on to magic shows and illusions.
I'm thinking about gummy bears. This never goes away for me. This is
Okay.
an ongoing conversation.
Not CBD. Not CBD
No,
gummy
I've
bears.
never done that yet.
There you go. Buffalo VA will be accepting Valentine's cards from a few politicians. It will also hold a
Yikes! That
photo.
seems like a
That's what
bomb
I
waiting to
want.
happen.
I want my Trump Valentine.
Most of the politicians I know are not for good reasons, so I can't even make a joke here.
That seems salacious. I
Like
think
if-
they should probably steer clear.
Like if your politician doesn't give you a Valentine, does that disrupt your relationship?
Here, baby. Here's a Valentine
It's
for you.
just
darling.
tasteful nudes. It's like they're signed.
Is that Senator Wieners?
Yep. Well,
Why
it's
do you
been
call me
fun,
his
guys.
little ad-
We had
why
a
do you
good
call me
run.
his little admin.
Come to your CBOC for your Valentine's Day.
All right.
card.
Well, this is your opportunity to say thank you to a special group of men and women, the millions of veterans who are cared for by the VA, whether it's a Valentine's card from your favorite politician, an illusion, or maybe some gummy bears. The week also provides an opportunity for the community to become acquainted with the volunteer opportunities within medical centers. Contact your nearest VA medical center
CBOC.
and ask for, there it is, a voluntary service to discover the wonderful things you, your group or organization can do to salute America's heroes. Locate the facility nearest you on the National Salute to Veterans Patient. It's observed through February 20th.
Community-based outpatient clinic.
CBOC out.
Hey, speaking of Valentine's Day, you guys know I love Reddit, and we couldn't get past a big holiday like this without going down the Reddit rabbit hole. You guys ready?
Reddit damn near killed it.
Well, they didn't disappoint. What I did find was, or what I didn't expect to find was that military romance was not without its scams. So, all you potential Valentines out there, in the digital age of love, beware. Apparently, Sergeant Scammer Yammerton is real. So here are just a few cautionary tales and takeaways that I thought I'd share. At Alana015 posted, a very close friend of mine has, and by a very close friend, she means herself, has been chatting via Google with someone who claims to be a member of the U.S. military deployed to Syria. I'm sorry, but there's only a very few contingents in Syria. That might have been number one clue. I guess my question is simple. My friend herself says that she met him on TikTok. Oof, girlfriend. There's another caution. Last I checked, that app has banned from use by active duty military. Is it still? He also claimed there was specific protocols that prevented him from calling her on the phone. No, honey. This especially is why I'm fairly sure he's attempting to scam her. You think? Are there any such protocols in place? And would they make allowances for social media like TikTok and chat apps like Google Chat? So, of course, my friends on Reddit got their responses in fast, like at Foxhole Atheist 45, which is a great handle, by the way.
That's a funny name.
Answered, actually, active military here, currently deployed in and around the Middle East. Look, it's a scam. Absolutely, period. We are allowed phones, and there is no protocols in place that keep us from making phone calls. I feel sarcasm dripping. If there is a comms blackout, they remove our ability to access the internet, although in this day and age, there is usually a way around that. If a soldier can talk to you via text or TikTok or any other messaging platforms, they can call. End of story. If you need a specific question to ask to be certain they are a scammer, let me know. And you really don't have to ask. It is absolutely a scam. So I think that's a really great tip from Foxhole Atheist 45. Here's another one, another scam post at Alternative Ant 372. I don't know whose alternate ant they are, other than 372.
Sounds like a 90s band.
That's the ant, the insect.
Yep, but ant, not
like
aunt.
Like an Ant-Man, like an alternative Ant-Man.
Okay, an alternate Ant-Man. Thanks for the information. I'm sitting with a similar situation. Oh, girlfriend. In my case, it is in Jordan. Oh, nobody's in Jordan. And only able to make voice calls except once a month. This person claims to be telling the truth, but I don't believe it. Asked for money for the kid's birthday, divorced, etc. What kind of single father does not plan for his kid's birthday before he leaves? Well, no one. So anyway, he sent 2 photos, which could be legit, but doubt it. So I asked for a photo where he's holding a note with my name, current date, and the time. Wow, you're getting really desperate here. Selfie.
We need proof of life.
Yeah, can you hold up a newspaper with today's date, please? Do I know what the Army policies are? How dangerous it is, blah, 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 blah. I just feel sorry for the poor guy whose picture they're using. You think this whoever's photos being used by these scammers, I feel really bad for. Anyway, I did a reverse image search on the internet, Googled the name and surname, came up empty, but this doesn't surprise me. You can't find me on the internet either. I just want to find the real person to tell them their picture's being used. So in response, the Reddit rabbit holers like myself, that sounds really bad. I should come up with a different
No, you and the rabbit holers, go for it.
At Nimble2 stepped in and offered, stop. That's all caps, by the way. Stop. This is a romance scammer. There is no question about it. Stop trying. Debunk the scammer's claims. That's a pointless process. If your friend wants to believe in a false fantasy, then no amount of debunking by you will help. The scammer has heard it all before, and they can pivot their lies to address your concerns when she raises your concerns to them. Tell your friend that if her newfound love ever asks her to do them any kind of favor, that's any kind of favor, money or whatever, then that is how you know they are a scammer. The very awesome, and this is the same handle. The very awesome Nimble2 also provided this little nugget of feedback. A very close friend of mine has been chatting via Google Chat with someone who claims to be a member of the U.S. military deployed to Syria. No need to read any further. Your close friend is being romance scammed. Finally, at Loud Swordfish 8257 shared in part, yesterday I posted in here that I was suspecting that my mom was in a romance scam. I'm sorry, Mama. There were tears shed, but we were able to use it to convince her that this guy wasn't real. Oh, God, you're such a good son or daughter. Swordfish 8257. Now, there was some really great responses from the rabbit holers in support of this mama who got scammed. At Ditson responded, I know it's hard, but you are protecting her. Spend some time with her today. Do all of her favorite things. At Willer said, the hardest part about unwinding romance scams is getting the victim to willingly give up the fantasy. It's flat out impossible in some cases, and the victims will lie, cheat, and steal to keep shoveling money into that scam. The fact that your mom could acknowledge that she was scammed and grieve over the loss of what she had believed was a huge win. Truth.
Go
ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, at Muchin Jury 8280 said, no soldier in any country is going to be worried about a relationship with someone he's never met while he is in a combat situation. That's also true. And finally, at Mundane Recipe offered some sage advice, and I'm going to leave it at this. And then, fellas, I'm going to ask you to weigh in. The best way is to video call these dudes! ! It freaks me out every time. And they will never answer. Great advice. Yeah. If you feel like it's a love scam, ask them to video chat. And if they bounce, you know it was never meant to be. Fellas?
Well, I just feel bad for all those upstanding dudes deployed to Syria and the Jordan and the Congo.
Can't even find a lady anymore because of the policies.
Now because of these romance scammers, they can't even get on a chat with somebody.
Looking for love in all
You're just ruining it for all those desperately in need in these obscure countries deployed.
I just want to add that I did a lot of research on scamming one time. There was a really smart one going around, and the thing is though is I read this whole thing and I started following these people that do these digital scam fighting online. And one of the things that they mentioned is that a lot of the touch points, if you'll notice, they're very poorly worded. They are obvious scams to most people. But the reason they're written that way, they could write them better. All they need to do is run it through ChatGPT and it would be almost perfect. But what they want is quality over quantity. They're going to get the right people. If someone does a touchback point after reading one of those emails, that's exactly the type of person that they can get money from. It keeps them from wasting time. And that's a really, in a weird sort of way, it's kind of brilliant because I always thought they were stupid, for doing that. And it's like, and it's worded in such a weird way and everything's misspelled and you're like, this is an obvious scam. Well, that's because people who would fall for that are more likely to give them money. And that's heartbreaking. That's sad. You're taking advantage of people who may not have, been able to go to school. They might have had to work when they were young. They may have bad vision. It could be a number of things. It's sad.
Well, for any of you out there who are lonely, you're not alone. And there are people out there to support you. Look at your local Legion Hall.
Well, you're alone right now, but we can fix that.
You're not alone forever.
You're not alone forever. And we'll have links for that in the show notes. And additionally, I just want to say happy birthday. 1 in 365 chance of being right there. All right, Alphas, thanks for listening. You can subscribe to our podcast, our newsletter, or send us mail and guest recommendations at legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima.
We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.